Perfect. So welcome, everybody. I'm so excited to have you at the Applying to Waterloo Engineering Counsellor Workshop. We're so happy to have Mariana here join us. I'm just going to let you take it away just because you're
Yeah, sure.
in your
Wonderful.
field and you'll be talking to us about engineering at Waterloo. So thank you.
You're welcome. So hi, good morning, everyone. Morning for us. I don't know where you are in the world. So good day, good evening, depending where you're joining us from. I'm really excited to be here. And thank you to Rosedale for organizing this event for us. It's certainly a great opportunity to connect with colleagues from across the world, as well as guidance counselors who are basically our greatest partners out there. So I would like to start this presentation off with a territorial acknowledgement and just say that the University of Waterloo work takes place on the traditional territory of the Neutral, Anishinaabe, and the Haudenosaunee peoples, and that our main campus is situated on the Haldeman Tract, which is the land actually promised to the Six Nations, and it includes 6 miles on each side of the Grand River. So if you ever get a chance to visit our campus, please know that we are actually on borrowed land, if you will. And basically our active work towards reconciliation takes place across our campuses through research, learning, teaching, and community building with our partners. And it's centralized within our Office of Indigenous Relations. And if you are ever interested in where, maybe Rosedale or other parts of Canada you visited with, what kind of native land they sit on, you're more than welcome to visit the nativeland.ca to learn more about that. Okay, now we're going to get into the meat of things. So the way I kind of envisioned today's presentation is just going through basically what it takes from the moment that a student says, I'm interested in Waterloo engineering, to the moment that they finish their application. So we're going to go through basically what happens October to sort of May in our world, as well as in your world and the student's world. So the number one thing for University of Waterloo Engineering is that you have to select the right program. So we offer the School of Architecture, which is a traditional architecture program, plus 14 undergraduate engineering programs in our faculty. And there are a few things that are different about our programs than other programs in Canada, we'll go through these things. So all engineering programs are co-op programs, which is basically paid internship. And our students will do a 4-month academic term where they will be studying full-time, and then they will do a 4-month full-time work term where they will be getting paid and nothing goes to the university, so they get to keep the money. And this alternates 4 months of school, 4 months of work, 4 months of school for a total of 5 years. And when they are applying on the Ontario University's Application Center, which is the only way you can apply to our university, they choose one engineering program. So out of those 14, they can choose only one. And then they will have an opportunity on a supplemental application, which we call the admission information form, to then select an alternate engineering program. And we'll talk more about that in a bit. Obviously, they can also apply to the architecture program because it's now one of the 14 undergraduate engineering programs. So it's sort of together but separate. And here they are. So they range in very traditional programs like chemical engineering, mechanical engineering, to super detailed programs and specialized ones like nanotechnology engineering, biomedical engineering, or geological engineering. Okay, so how do you advise students to select an engineering program at the University of Waterloo? So we like to tell students to do their homework. We're really big on that. And so we say, investigate them as much as you can. Look at the types of jobs other students worked in that program or our alumni. Look at the courses that are going to be offered in 3rd and 4th year. That's all available online for the students, or they can just reach out to us. They can ask to be part of the engineering chats where they talk online with the current students, or if it's possible, they can visit our campus and meet our students face to face. And obviously for some students, that is not a possibility depending on where they are in the world and just whether they can travel or not. So one of the things is that we really advise students is not to apply just for the sake of applying to an engineering program or because your parents are telling you to do so, or because your friend is going into that program. All those reasons make it very unsuccessful for you because it is a very challenging program academically, and you have to devote quite a lot of time to the studies. So once you decide what you want to do, what do you need to get in? How do you apply to this program and ensure that you have all the requirements? So one of the first things that you will have to do is complete your 101 Ontario University's application or your 105 Ontario University's application on the OUAC website. And there are the deadlines on when that is due. Then you need to submit all supporting documents. So for students who are part of Rosedale, their grades are going to be automatically sent to us, but the things that they need to do is that supplemental application, so admission information form, and then there's also an option to do the online video and any other supporting documents in case they haven't studied in an English language school for the past 4 years. They would need to send their English language test results. And then there are two possibilities when your students can receive an answer from the University of Waterloo, either the end of March or mid-May. So we only make decisions twice a year. Well, I'll talk about whether that's the only time we make decisions in a second, but that is the official answer that the students will hear from us. I'll give you a little clue later on about it's not truly like that. Now, what courses did they need? So this is really important, especially for students you might be coaching in grade 10 or 11, helping them to kind of not close any doors for themselves and forge a pathway. So the things they will need is advanced functions, calculus and vectors, chemistry, physics, English, and then any other 4U or 4M course of their choosing. Each course has to have a minimum of 70% grade, and the overall average must be a minimum of 85%. Now, if they are applying for a very competitive software engineering program, they also have to have proof that they've have experience in developing well-structured modular programs. And that's either completing a computer science course, participating in programming contests or hackathons, or any other work experience. They might be working, in their parents' company or a family or a friend. Anything like that would be sufficient proof of programming experience. Okay, and again, for students who have not completed 4 full years of English language instruction, these are just the English language requirements based on various different tests that they can take on there. And the Bridge to Academic Success in English, we'll talk about that a little bit later, but that is a program that's also available to our students. Okay, so this is kind of insider information, something we don't as readily share with students. But basically, these are the number of students that we are looking for. And one of the things that you will see here is that visa numbers are quite small. And one of the reasons for that is that at the Faculty of Engineering, we basically cap the number of students who do not have Canadian citizenships to about 12% per program. So 12% of the total incoming class or thereabouts will be students who are holders of non-Canadian citizenships. So these targets are not finalized. They're sort of approximations for the upcoming year. So just take that with a grain of salt, kind of. They might change slightly, but nothing drastic is going to happen. Okay, so this is what I said when I kind of alluded to the fact that we only accept students at the end of March and the beginning of May, or mid-May rather. This is the exception to that rule. So if you have a student sitting in your office who has to either pay another university or they're going to lose some kind of scholarship if they don't reply, before May 1st, or it might be April 1st, depending on the university that is requesting their answer. The student can send that letter where they have where they're either going to lose money or they have to pay money by a certain date to our email address, which is enginfo@uwaterloo.ca, and we will make sort of an exception. We will make an on-the-spot decision for them so that they know where they stand with the University of Waterloo. So we'll assess their application and give them a sense of whether or not they're admissible, so that they can make a decision about whether or not to attend that other university that they have to make a financial commitment to at that time. So even though we have only 2 rounds when we make decisions, if this is the case with one of your students, they should let us know and just email some kind of proof that they have, like I said, either a financial commitment or that they are going to lose some kind of scholarship money unless they let the university know early. Okay, so how do we evaluate engineering applicants? Well, and we'll talk about this in a second, but we get about 14,000 applications for, as you saw, about 1,800 spots. And we look at every single application. And technically, even though the minimum is an 85 average, the students who receive offers sit somewhere between the average admission average of low 80s to mid 90s, or low 90s to mid 90s. So that kind of 89 to a 96 is sort of a sure thing depending on the program. And the reason why we look at every single application is because we actually evaluate their admission information form and the online video interview if they choose to complete it when we are assessing an application. And we actually give them an admission score based on all those 3 factors, rather than kind of saying, oh, anyone who has less than 92 is out, and then we read their admission information form. So we will look at everyone. And that gives students who, might not be academically very strong, but, have done amazing things outside of the classroom, maybe in their community, maybe in, math competitions or hackathons, or maybe they started their own company. It gives them a chance to kind of flourish and be on the same playing field with students who've done exceptionally well academically, because we're kind of looking for a little bit of grit in students who apply. So, the ideal student is well-rounded, also academically successful, but it really has done a lot of stuff outside of the classroom and has those experiences. That's really important to us because these students, once they're on campus, every 4 months have to pack up and move, sometimes, to another city, to another province in Canada, or to another country to do their co-op job for 4 months. So we don't have a cutoff average in terms of one that guarantees your admission. We will just look at everyone and try to assess them based on both their extracurricular accomplishments as well as what they've done academically. So these are the probabilities that you'll find in every University of Waterloo engineering brochure. And they show you basically, depending on your grade average of those 5 required courses plus the 6th of your own choosing, where what your chances are like. So you'll see here, we kind of have 3 tier of programs. So biomedical and software are the hardest to get into. Next, we have computer, electrical, mechanical, mechatronics, and system design. And then lastly, the other group of programs, which are the least competitive. Excuse me. So in a typical year, we'll receive 14,000 applications. We will send about 4,000 offers to our students, and about 2,000 students will accept offers of admission. And that will give us an 1,800 kind of rough group at the end of first year. So really, where we lose the most students, as you probably all can imagine, is during that summer, whether they get another chance or there's a change in the financial structure of the family or anything like that. We will lose about 200 students, almost between that June 1st, when they say we're coming, to that September deadline. So in that summer, we tend to lose some students. So this is sort of the probabilities based on those numbers that I just shared. So a typical year, if for any reason we receive more or less applicants, those probabilities would change. Now, if you go back to selecting an alternate engineering program, so that's that second choice that you make on our own supplemental application. This is sort of a little bit of a strategic move. So one of the things that's really important to notice is that biomedical and software engineering are not available as backup choices or second alternate choices, because mathematically it's impossible if you are not going to make it into, let's say, mechanical engineering, as you can see with the possibilities here, probabilities, it's impossible to actually make it into software or biomedical. Similarly, if you are applying to, let's say, computer engineering, and a student wants to put electrical as their second choice, that really doesn't make sense mathematically either. So a good alternate choice is one that's in the category that's less competitive. If you're not interested in any other programs, or the student isn't, or they just don't like any of the programs in the kind of lower tier, I would recommend that they don't apply, because if they get into the program, the chances of moving to the one that they actually enjoy are very difficult in our programs, because we are cohorted. So the University of Waterloo Engineering, all the students stick together, and those courses are only offered for those students. So switching to another program, you all usually have to start way back at the beginning in first year, and that, you lose money, you lose time, you end up staying longer. So anytime you're applying, doing your homework and picking the right program is key. And if you can't figure out which alternate choices for you, just leave it blank, basically. That's our advice. So again, all of the things that I just talked about. So if a student doesn't like any other program, one of the things to remember is that we do have options, which are kind of like minors. And that way you can add a specialization to another program that might be of interest. So maybe you think mechatronics is the only program for you and you don't want to apply for anything else. Well, we have a mechatronics option. So you could possibly look at another program that might be of interest. And if you got into that lower tier program, add mechatronics option to you. And that way open doors to some mechatronics jobs for yourself. So that's another way to look at it. Okay, so when you're advising a student and they say, I'm trying to complete my Waterloo Engineering application, they need to complete and submit the OUAC application. Then they need to complete the admission information form, because we will not admit students who do not complete the admission information form. That's required, and we're very strict on that. Then they need to complete their online video interview. Now, this is optional, but highly recommended. And there is no penalties to not doing a good job. You just don't get any scoring for it. So there's no need. There's no reason that the student shouldn't be doing the online video interview. And then if there's any additional documentation, for example, if they transfer to Rosedale only for grade 12, we will need grade 11 grades, or if they had to do the English language test, we needed those results as well. Okay. Now, let's talk about the admission information form, because this is one of the key ways to sort of offset any low marks and actually get admission into the University of Waterloo by writing a very strong admission information form. So students usually get very worried about how to complete this, and they will have a lot of questions because it's such a valuable part of their application. So the things that we are trying to assess is the motivation for studying engineering, the motivation for studying engineering at the University of Waterloo, any extracurricular activities, their work and volunteer experience. It doesn't have to be engineering related. So work and volunteer experience can be as simple as babysitting their brother or sister or a family friend. Any awards or achievements, and then if they're interested in an alternate program, they can obviously identify that as well. So we don't grade them on how well written the AIF is, but I mean, a well-written AIF just makes it easier to assess and grade. So it is important to dedicate some time to your language is also correct grammatically, so that we can easier understand what the student is trying to communicate to us. So when we assign grades, we assign grades to the sort of level of involvement in activities. So that's both depth and breadth. Employability, so whether a student has already had some volunteer or work experience, and then fit. Have they shown in their AIF that they are actually fit into this very academically rigorous program, a program where things change all the time, where you need to be looking for a job while you're studying, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what we're trying to assess. Can they handle the pressure of being an engineering student at Waterloo? And obviously the AIF score is then becomes part of, it's added to admission average and becomes part of the admission score, which is what we base admissions on. So we don't base admission on admission average, but rather an admission score. Okay. Excuse me, I'm just going to grab a bit of water here. So what we're trying to assess is what skills have you developed through your activities? So it's not enough to say, oh, I'm the president of student council. Well, did you develop leadership skills there? Did it help you with time management? How did that impact who you are or your skill set? We also look at, like I said, the depth of your commitment to that particular activity. So the number of hours or years, have you always been in school council, or did you just decide to do this in your last year to kind of tick off, oh, I'm involved, kind of checklist, you know? And then significant achievements. Maybe you practice karate and you achieved the black belt, anything like that. Or maybe you went to a conference where you spoke, anything that is sort of above and beyond. So we also look at things that students that might not be traditional, like extracurricular activities. So like I said, if a student comes from a family where one of their responsibilities is cooking the meals in the evening for younger siblings, that can be both volunteer experience. It can be framed as a volunteer experience, or just a volunteer activity that they do. So it does not have to be within their school. It can be in the community or at home. Okay, so employability. So what are we looking for? We're looking to know the students have had some touch point with an employer. They've been managed. They understand the responsibilities of going into a job, being on time in the morning. So anything full-time experience during the summer, if that's part of the culture they come from, or a part-time employment experience, or a significant volunteer experience. And it can be pretty much in any area. So, for the North American kind of audience, we say, like, if you work at McDonald's in the evenings and weekends, that's good enough. So again, if they volunteer at their church and give out soups to the needy, that's a great volunteer experience. And of course, the key is not for them to work at some engineering company, which would be great, but that's not necessary. There's no bonus points for working at an engineering company. It's more about the transferable skills. So being on time, managing, a busy schedule, things like that. Okay, and then fit. So how well do they know what they're getting themselves into? Do they understand that there's very little free time in the program? Have they talked to someone from the program? Have they done research on their own? Anything that shows that basically that they understand what they're getting themselves into, and then also highlighting some skill sets that we know are complementary to our program. So time management skills, leadership skills, anything like that is what is considered a good fit. Driven, intrinsically motivated students, those things we really value. Okay, so depending on culturally where students are from, in some cultures, it's not okay to boast about your achievements. It's seen as pretentious. Well, we really need them to kind of change their mindset and really just go all out and brag about all the things that they've achieved. So always talk about, the most significant achievements that you've done. And also be as precise as possible when describing dates and the number of hours involved in whatever they're doing. That's really important for when we are scoring these. Obviously, we don't encourage anyone to lie. So tell us the truth. Make it sound as good as possible without, actually being untruthful. And obviously, if we find out the students have embellished something or something just doesn't seem right, that will the consequences that their application will be denied. Okay, and so this is sort of how to improve the chances of being admitted. So the online video interview, like I said, is basically considered for admissions and scholarship, and it's free marks. You can't get bad marks on it. You can't get negative marks. So unless you complete the application, you can never score those bonus grades, if you will. And really what we're looking to do here, there's only 2 questions. The one question is going to look at, again, their reason for applying to Waterloo. And the second question will look at whether or not they've shown resilience in their life to this point. So have they ever had something that didn't go the way they wanted it to, and how did they handle it and what they learned from it? So very simple. So prepare for the interview. We tell them to pretend like they're going into a job interview. And it's okay if you're nervous, but just give yourself sort of enough time to do the practice questions, to get comfortable with both the platform, but also just answering questions on camera. But yeah, think about what you want to say. Make sure that they are in a quiet place, and what do they want us to see about them. If a student, if you know a student has an unaccommodated or suspected disability, illness, or trauma, and they need special consideration, please encourage them to go to this website, or they can email NGINFO and ask for this website because that's easier to remember. And we will, provide them additional documentation and support that they need to fill out. So kind of in a nutshell, take the time, encourage them to take the time to fill out the best AIF possible, encourage them to do the video online interview. And then should they have any questions, really EngInfo is, or should you have any questions, EngInfo is also the best place to get to the engineering admissions team and get answers. We try to be as quick as possible, and we do answer every question. So I'm just, this is almost the end of our presentation. I'm just going to talk about 4 topics here that we get questions from students very often about. So does the Ontario University's application choice matter? So we don't have a preference on what choice the students put us as on their Ontario University's application. Students who place us first, second, third, or whatever have this are treated all alike. There is no preferential treatment given to those who say that we are their first choice. So that's the number 1 question that we receive, very common. Transferring between programs. So there's 14 engineering programs. How easy is it for me to transfer, let's say, from chemical to nano when I find out that this is really what I'm interested in? It really does not work well because there usually isn't space in the other programs. And so to transfer, there has to be space, you have to be in good academic standing, and then you have to show evidence that you are a good fit for this new program. And like I said, transferring usually means that you have to repeat first year. So there's additional cost as well as delay to your graduation. So that's why it's really, really important to find a good fit before you apply. And students who pick the right program just have stronger applications because they know exactly what they're talking about and they have therefore more chance of getting in. So repeated courses, if you remember at the beginning, I said one of the required things was to have at least a minimum 70 in each of the courses. If a student does not have a 70 in one of the required courses and has to repeat it, we will penalize them by taking 5% off of their overall average. If they received 70% or more on their first try and they repeat the course, we will ignore them repeating the course and we will just take the first try grade and we will not penalize them. So we say that if the only thing wrong with your application is that you got a low score on one of your courses, then everything else that you do, the rest of your courses, the admission information form, and the video interview will result in the fact that that one course doesn't have a negative impact. One bad thing that happened to you should not have a negative impact on your application. So we encourage students to just focus on the rest of their career, the rest of their courses, rather than repeating a course, because we won't take the repeated course if the first grade was above 70%. Okay, so if a student has to do the English language test and they fall just below the test, but they're academically super strong, their AIF is great, their online video interview is great, there are 2 programs that they might become part of. Either the iBase program, which is basically a 7-week program the summer prior to starting their engineering program. So it's super intense, but it's just to get them on that same level as the rest of the students. Or the the Bridge to Academic Success in English, so the BASE program, which actually takes a full year, and then a student coming in would actually do a full year of BASE, which with a few engineering courses embedded in that program, and then they would start their actual engineering career the following year. Okay, so those are sort of the most common questions we get from students and guidance counselors. And that concludes my presentation. So Leslie or Jessica, or if you guys want to send some questions my way, that'd be great.
Thank you so much. That was really helpful. Like I learned a lot. I speak for all the counselors I know. I learned a lot. The alternate programs part was great. I didn't know about that one, knowing those percentages. But I do see that we have some questions. I know, Jessica, you had answered one of, or sort of mentioned on one of the comments. I don't know if you can see it, Mariana. It's from Victor.
I can see everyone. So you have said that the AIF online video. Oh, that's a great question. So I'll just read it so that others know what I'm trying to answer. You've said that the AIF and online video plays a vital role in the application process. How important can it be in relation to students who have grades between 92 and 95? That's a great question. So I would say for those biomedical and software, so those first tier programs, it's crucial. I mean, like if in those instances, anything that's even a little bit wrong with your application means that you're not going to get it. And so I can go back to those probabilities just to kind of illustrate how competitive those programs are. So even with a 95 or above, you only have a 33% chance of getting in. So anything really, everything has to be perfect for those students on their application. Now, I will say for computer, electrical, mechanical, mechatronics, assistant design, so that kind of middle ground programs, again, very important. So a strong AIF will, give an opportunity to a 92 student to get in over a 96 student. Because the AIF and the video interview will bump them up and they will have a higher admission score. So the only place where the role is less significant but still important is the third tier programs, which means that there's less demand for those programs. So even if your AIF is just okay and maybe you chose not to do the online interview, you still, if your grades are 92 to 95, have a pretty strong chance of getting in. But I would always encourage students to do the AIF and the online video interview as best as they can, because it is part of their scholarship score as well. And those scholarships that are assigned automatically are just basically that scholarship score. What did you get on the AIF? What did you get on the video interview? What's your average? And then we kind of throw it all together, and whoever comes up on top is the person who would get the scholarship. So it's really important for them, even if they're confident that their grades will get them in. Like, let's say they're applying to environmental, they have a 95 average. They probably can score even some money out of that if they really focus on a strong AIF and online video interview.
Thank you. So there are, if anyone else in this, or if any participants in this room, they have questions, feel free to type it in comments. I do see a few in the Q&A that I couldn't bring up, so I'll read them out to you, Mariana.
Sure.
So I'll verbally read them out to you. One of the questions was about the repeated course policy, and they're wondering, is this a Waterloo general policy, or is it a engineering sort of specific policy for that?
That's an amazing question. I'm so glad someone asked that. So everything I've said today is only an engineering policy. So we are very decentralized. And if this presentation was given by, let's say, an admissions person from arts or an admissions person from math, you would have heard drastically different things. So the policy only exists for those applying to engineering. And really most of other programs, with the exception of the programs within the Faculty of Mathematics, don't have a repeat course policy.
Okay, perfect. And then another one, and this one's a little bit of a bigger question, I guess, and it's really about co-op. I know that in this presentation we didn't really get into co-op too much, but they're just wondering about the co-op program and sort of how that looks, and are students supposed to find their own placements, all of those.
That's also a great question. So we actually have we have sort of a whole team. We even have a VP of, for co-op, so a vice president. But we have a whole machine of people who actually go out there and look for jobs for our students. So they advertise what our students are good at. And then there's a internal database that students go through to look at advertisements for jobs that are basically from companies who inherently understand how it works at the University of Waterloo. So these people have hired before, or they're just found out about our great program and want to hire our students. Some students choose to find jobs on their own. That's also allowed, but most students will look through our database and find jobs that way. And if you're not going off on your own and looking for a job, you're actually going to apply for jobs. They're going to reply back whether or not they want to interview you. You will interview either virtually, because that's now also a thing, or the company will come on campus and interview all the students they're interested in. So all of the candidates who they want to interview, and then they will go back and we will go through something that we call our ranking process. So all the companies will rank the students that they've interviewed, and all the students will rank the companies they interviewed with. And there's a matching system that happens behind the scenes, and then students will get matched with an employer. And so usually it's the first co-op job that's the hardest for everyone, because for some programs, students are actually looking for their first job 3 weeks after they arrive on campus. So after that first 4 months of schooling, they'll be going on a 4-month work term. So those students, all our students, the first time they go through the process, will have an online course where we will support them through how to research companies before they write a cover letter and a resume, how to write a cover letter and a resume. They can do mock interviews, because depending on where they're coming in the world, they might not have ever gone through a job interview. It's just not part of where they're coming from. So they can do practice job interviews, either with career advisors or current students, who are great resource of sort of saying, oh, this is a mistake I used to make. Maybe you should phrase that answer this way, and so forth. So there's a great support system for students when they're looking for their first co-op job.
Perfect. And I am conscious of time a little bit, just because I want to give everyone enough time to move on to their next sessions. But just if they have any questions that they weren't able to get answered today, or they come up with any new questions later, is there a contact number? I think it was on your last slide.
Well, I'm going to include I'm going to type up my personal email. So here in the comment section, let's see if that's going to go. Can
Did that work? Did you press send? I should see it on the back end, I think, if I can't see it now.
Let's see. Let me try in Q&A.
There it is. Yes.
There it is. So that's my email, or njinfo at UWaterloo, and Jessica and another person will man that, so they will be able to answer your questions as well.
Perfect. Yeah, no, thank you so much. Oh, and I know that all the counselors will ask me later, but is there any way you can share this PowerPoint with them, or is there a way we can?
Oh, yeah. Most of this information is all over the place, public knowledge. So I can definitely, or give permission. I've already shared the PowerPoint presentation with Raylon.
Okay.
So he can, I'll let him know that he can definitely share it with the rest of the counselors.
Wonderful. Well, thank you everyone for attending. And we want to give you enough time to go to your next session, since it's starting in 1 minute. So to get to your next session, you just need to leave this one, and then you'll be going through your agenda, whatever session you had added or that's in your agenda. You can just click the link there to join the call. And thank you to Jessica, Mariana, for speaking with us from the University of Waterloo Engineering.
Have a great conference, everyone. Bye-bye.